Welcome back to Ritual Hobby and Art. I'm going to talk about the using water-soluble pencils in my coloring books, specifically Creative Haven, but I do have another one I'm going to reference as well. So water-soluble pencils, it's like um, colored pencils, but they interact with water to become more like a water paint. This is a Derwent set that I got over 30 years ago, back in the 90s, early 90s, and still use it. Usually, in addition to the other set that I primarily use, which is a Prismacolor Premier set, 36 number set. I've had this, I think, since 2018 when I broke my arm, and my wife bought it for me to do some coloring. And that's certainly what I use it for. It comes with 3 trays of color, and you can tell that I have been using it thusly. And so, in fact, my green is getting very, very short. And I bought a second set of 12 recently, very recently, to for the green and some of these other colors that are going to run out eventually. So anyway, that is what I use primarily. Set those to the side. For water, you can use any. There are different things you could use. I started out mainly just using brushes. This is the brush I used since the 90s, but any brush. This is just a basic brush you can buy off of Amazon in a set of maybe 6. You can buy these at big box hobby stores or small hobby stores. But there's not, for what I'm doing, there's no specific type of brush needed. The other option is you can get these water pens that you can buy. I bought a set of 3, and they're really nice because I used to empty them every time I used them, but now I just keep them in a cup, and when I need them, I pull them out so I can, any evening and I want to work on this, they're there. So that's another option. But you don't have to have these. You can use these or whatever works for you. So examples of what these things look like. This is By the Sea by George Tufexis. Many of you have this or are familiar with it. It's a Creative Haven book. Nice scenes inside. This one I have almost primarily used water-soluble pencil. So here's a scene from that. Let's see, there's 3 of them, or 4 of them, I think. This one, there's a cat, I believe. Picture of a cat with a... There he is. A cat with a bird. That was one of my favorites. And then there's this guy. It's the kayaker with some herons on the water. So those are all done with water-soluble pencil. Years ago, well, wasn't that much further. I think 2017 is when I got this book. And I'll do a separate video on this at some point. But just to give you an idea, this is done with water-soluble pencil. And this one, and most of the ones in this book are done with water-soluble pencil. Some also have acrylic paint. But this is an example of water-soluble pencil in this form. So right now, I'm doing one in this book. And I've shared this one before. This is Around the World by George Tufexis, another color by number. And I had specifically shared some of the ones I had done in gouache paint in this book. I've also done stuff in Crayola, like this guy. This is Senegal, and I featured this in the video I did on painting in a Creative Haven book. So that's with paint. Currently, I'm working on this one, and this is with water-soluble pencil, with the Prismacolor Premier pencils. So I'll show you kind of what I'm doing in here. It's not really a lot to it, but I'll show you some of my form, and at the end you'll see the completed picture. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start working on this area here. I've got my list of numbers and what their corresponding colors are, and get to it. Now, because this is water soluble, I'm not going to get into being precise in how this is colored in, because when the water breaks down the color, you can kind of swish it around. You can move some of that color around. So everybody colors differently, and if I was using one of my other non-water soluble pencils, I would take this a little more carefully. Oh, who cares? You know, it's a coloring book. You do what you do. If I was concerned about mixing this around, I could always use one of these things, one of these blending pencils. I'm sure you've seen those before. This is a Prismacolor one. They work. They work well. Better though when you're not dealing with water soluble pencil. They're a little waxy, and so you don't really need. These are a little waxy, not the blending pencil. All right, brick red. Now this is where I get into this set because, in fact, I already have it out, but this is from the Derwent set, and the Prismacolor doesn't have this color in the way I would like it, so I use it in this other set. And, you know, obviously it's okay to mix things up. I know everybody does it. I don't do it as much, but I'm learning that if I don't have a color in one set, I can get a color in another set, and it's perfectly fine. Because these are older, they don't color as well as the newer ones, but once the water hits them, it doesn't matter. Oh, no wonder I'm having trouble. I've got this. Okay, so you're going to need this as well when you apply the water, but you don't really need it when you're putting the color down. That's a piece of water-soluble, or a piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to do watercolor paintings on. And didn't know it was back there, so maybe my color will branch out a little better. And all it's really doing is keeping it from getting onto the surface below, if perhaps I may have something on there that I don't want damaged. That's the reason for that. All right, well, that's a good start. So what I'm going to do now, put this back underneath. And I'm going to do this both ways. So first with the brush. I also have a paper towel that helps absorb some of the water. You're not going to go straight from the water pot, so I have a water pot over here. So I've got it in the water, just like you would with any brush. And then I'm going to tap on the tissue a little bit, and I'm going to fill in these guys. And once that water hits it, it starts to break down, it works around, and as long as you keep it, you know, just try to keep it in the lines, you know, as you would. Same thing if I was working. It's just like when I work with the gouache, except that instead of having paint on the brush, I have the paint has already been colored on. So same thing. And you don't have to get more water on until it really gets dry. And you don't want a lot of water on this thing, and it'll get all over the place. So, but that's doing this with just a simple brush that you can buy at any craft store, or really just about anywhere. Probably buy these things at a supermarket. I mean, let's use this one. All right, this has had water in it for months, So I don't need to, where it says push on the side, I don't ever have to do that. In fact, I'm going to let it off a little bit on there. I'm just holding it lightly, allow it to get on there. And if a lot of water comes out of here, just stop, go somewhere else. It'll dry, but you don't need to wipe it off. You don't need to worry about it. Just let it dry and come back to it later. So I'm just gently letting it do its thing. There we go. And sometimes I won't fill in the whole thing with color. I'll let this move the color around. And so that's also, with this wet, I won't do this one, which is a different color. You probably can't see the difference there, but if you've done one thing that's colors next to each other, let the first one dry at least most of the way before you start watering the next one, because you don't want bleeding and blending when you don't want bleeding and blending. And then I'll just wipe off a little bit on here, because whatever color is on this brush will now go on the paper towel, especially if I'm going from one color to another. But I'm just going to go over to this piece right here, which is very similar. And I have not I haven't squeezed this thing for more water. There'd be water all over the place. And I don't need that. And so, and it depends on how much color you put down in the space. So. So this is the completed picture with fountain, temple, and background. Hopefully this will encourage you to use water-soluble pencils in your coloring books. Thanks for watching.